gone into that rabbit hole at 3 a.m. and your mind just starts to wander to places that it just like really shouldn't be, like, you know, rats eating you alive and medieval torture and things like that? Well, I've been there too, and unfortunately I think about it more than most people, and that prompted me all of my 8th through 9th grade year to just read and study about medieval torture, and I've actually been to the Medieval Torture Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. And all I can say about those combined experiences is that medieval torture was brutal, plain and simple. And I'm gonna go over some of the more painful ones and some of the ones, like the hardest torture methods to be around. And so let's start with the most painful torture methods, and first up is the Judas chair. And the Judas chair was a pyramid structure that was either made out of wood or metal with a pulley structure above it. And in that pulley structure, the prisoner was strapped into it, and oftentimes they had weights attached to their wrists and their ankles. And so that when they were lowered down onto the point of the chair, which was often situated in the person's anus, it would absolutely just rip into the organs and just do a whole bunch of damage. And it was very painful. And the cousin to the Judas chair is the Spanish donkey. And this is more of a triangular prism type contraption, and the prisoners were made to straddle this, and like the Judas chair, weights were attached to the wrists and ankles, and sometimes the prisoner would be ripped in half because of the weight. And it was definitely more painful than the Judas chair, but not as painful as the brazen bull. The brazen bull was created by an Athenian named Perillus, and it was made of brass. And so the prisoner was put on the inside of the bull, and there was a fire underneath the bull, and either the torturer or another prisoner was tasked to stoke this fire to keep it really hot until you burned to death. And as a further refinement, Perillus incorporated small flutes into the beast's nostrils so that the screams of agony issuing from within would be transformed into the lowing of a bull. Abbott, 2006. And when Perillus pitched this idea to his local tyrant, he was so disgusted with it that he used this against Perillus himself, but he didn't actually kill him with it. He brought him just to the brink, then he took him out, and then he threw him down a mountain. That's how abhorrent this idea was to that tyrant. And if you think those are bad, just wait until you hear about the most disgusting to just be around. And the first of those is the rack. And what the rack was, it's just a slab of wood that was mainly used to punish heretics and co-conspirators against the church and people like that. And what it was is just a slab like this, and then the prisoner's hands and legs were bound above and beneath them with ropes, and then the torturers would just yank on the ropes and tighten them and tighten them and tighten them until things started popping and tearing. And one of the worst aspects of the rack was the sounds, the popping and breaking of various tissues, bones, and fibers mixed with the screams of agony was a nightmare. Bennett, 2012. And this was one of the easiest ways to get a confession out of someone who was plotting against the church, but it was not the most effective way. The most effective way was rats. And even just rats themselves, not even in a torture situation, people hate them. You see them walking down the street and you flinch and you wish that they didn't exist. But what they incorporated into the torture situation was called the rat cage. And what the rat cage was, you just put the rat on top of their abdomen, put a half metal cage on top of the rat, and then you'd start to heat up the cage. And the rat, looking to escape the heat from the cage, turned to your soft little meaty flesh and used their disgusting claws and their dirty little teeth to just gouge into your flesh. And oftentimes they would take large chunks of your organs with them. And this, like that's how easily they got a confession, because the people watching this were so disgusted. They wanted their pain to stop and just to stop seeing all that gore, that it was just so easy to get a confession like that. And after describing even just these limited examples, it's safe to say that medieval torture was just absolutely brutal. And there are very disturbing ways to be around them, and they're very painful and just not fun for everyone involved. And if I can leave you with just one final thought, just keep the rats away from your liver.